In 2021, a terrible incident occurred in one of the urban areas in Atlanta, Georgia. It occurred in Piedmont Park, the largest and most visited green space located in the Midtown area of Atlanta. In the early hours of Wednesday, July 28, 2021, a gruesome discovery was made at the Charles Allen entrance to the Piedmont Park near 10th Street.
This morning, we now know a woman was found stabbed to death in Piedmont Park. A homicide investigation is underway and what police call a gruesome scene. Chanu Hur is live from Piedmont Park with the very latest. Chanu.
Yeah, Aisha, APD has told us that the woman who appears to have been stabbed to death is in her 40s. Again, like you said, Aisha, they are describing this as a gruesome scene. We did just see the medical examiner leave this area of Piedmont Park. Some police are still here right now. This is at the corner of 10th Street and Charles Allen Drive, right at the entrance into the park here. Police say she was found about 100 yards into the park. We're told another person in the park found the body and called 911 around 1 o'clock this morning. This is what the scene has looked like all morning. APD has this part of the park blocked off and say they will be here for several more hours. Investigators say they're hoping once the sun comes up, they'll be able to canvass the scene better, but they are describing this again as a very gruesome scene.
We really have to get a confirmation on the identity of the female. That would definitely help us so we can backtrack and kind of retrace some of their steps. So again, I'm not sure exactly why she was in the park after dark. So that's something that our investigators are going to have to look into.
Right now, police are still working to get any suspect information they can, as well as what a possible motive for this homicide could be. They are asking if you know any information about this, you are asked to call police. And of course,
the deceased woman was 40-year-old Catherine Lynette Janness, who went by Katie, who was from Atlanta, Georgia. She was walking with her partner's dog Bowie, who was also killed in the brutal attack.
A brutal murder inside Piedmont Park. This 40-year-old woman stabbed to death, her dog also killed. The gruesome crime happening on one of Atlanta's most popular top outdoor destinations.
And tonight, police are pleading for your help to find out who's responsible. Police found the victim near the 10th Street entrance to the park, not far from Park Tavern. CBS 46's Haley Mason is live tonight as officers scour that area for answers. Haley?
Tracy, we've learned that the woman who was killed actually worked not too far from where her body was found here at the entrance of Piedmont Park. I'm here where police say the woman was stabbed repeatedly just yards away from this 10th Street entrance. And right now, people from the community have come out to lay flowers in her memory, as well as dog treats honoring the woman's life, as well as her dog who was killed here overnight. Police believe this may have been the last time anyone saw Catherine Janness walking her dog late last night in Midtown. She was found brutally stabbed to death just after 1 o'clock this morning inside Piedmont Park.
We're just asking anyone if they saw or heard anything to call 911. Call Crime Stoppers.
Police tell us Catherine and her dog were killed inside the park. Police from several agencies combed through the crime scene that happened just yards from the front entrance on 10th Street in Charles Allen.
I really hope that they find the person and figure out security around the area.
Some joggers telling me today they're becoming more concerned about crime, especially after learning the brutal nature of this stabbing.
I think it's a shame that there's so many murders being done now.
All of us would like to know, was this a random act? Was there, was someone targeted? I mean, it would just help for us to have peace of mind and have an idea of the threat level and the safety.
A dive team swam through this murky pond near the front of the park, searching for new evidence through the afternoon. Right now, cameras on nearby streets are offering the best picture of what might have happened.
I've made it a point to not be in the park after hours, and I do wish that there was some way to, sort of sweep the park at night and make sure that people leave, because we have a lot of people that camp and live in the park.
I hope maybe they'll start putting policemen here at nighttime to start walking around. I mean, they should.
And the details are just awful. We will say, though, that off the record, Sources have told us this woman was mutilated, and police are adamant in finding out who did this. Police are also offering a $10,000 reward for information that will lead to arrest. Any tipster can remain anonymous. Later tonight on CBS 46, my colleague Zach Summers is talking to people who knew Catherine and knew her well in Midtown. Reporting live in Piedmont Park, Haley Mason, CBS 46 News.
Late Tuesday on the 27th, Katie Janness had stopped by Henry's Midtown Tavern, where her girlfriend Emma Clark was working. After Katie and Bowie walked away from the tavern, they planned to return to meet Emma and walk home together. But when Emma was ready to head home, Katie didn't answer her phone, and she wasn't at home. Emma Clark tried tracking Katie's phone, but the tracking device wasn't moving. After a short walk from the couple's home, Emma found both Katie and Bowie dead, about 100 feet apart. Katie's body was discovered just after 1 a.m., about 100 yards inside the park's 10th Street entrance. After finding the two in Piedmont Park, Emma Clark called 911, then called her brother and father. On August 3, 2021, Atlanta Police Chief Rodney Bryant said he called on the FBI to aid the investigation and that there's no evidence the murder was a hate crime.
And then lastly, the incident in Piedmont Park. It was my decision to call upon the FBI after having conversations with Chief Hampton on what we had in the park. I called upon the FBI, one, because they are a strong partner that provides a level of resources that we just don't have. And I did so based on the information that he provided. As the mayor stated, this homicide, this murder was outside the norm of what we would typically see. The mayor stated that many of our homicides that we have in the city of Atlanta was acquaintance. But this was so unique that I felt that we needed to collaborate with as many resources as we possibly can, and therefore I asked Chief to get in touch with the FBI immediately. The difference in doing so is that we have the ability to get the FBI on the front end as opposed to bringing them in lately. And again, I attribute this to our partnership and the relationship that we have with that agency. And so I'm confident that we're doing everything that we possibly can. I've had conversations with the DA's office and the sheriff's office, and everyone is willing to contribute resources to this. So without going, no, I'd be remiss if I have to reiterate what the mayor stated about false information. We have to make sure that the information that is going out to the public is factual. I think that quite often what we are now hearing is a lot of sensationalism and misinformation as it relates to what we're seeing, and it is really causing us more problem, especially with the community that we serve. We have to maintain a level of integrity as it relates to this case. It is important to us that we resolve this and not be distracted by misinformation.
Good morning. As many of you are aware, on July 28th in the early morning hours, Katie and her dog, Bowie, was tragically taken from our community. Katie was a devoted daughter, sister, wife, a friend of many. She was a talented songwriter. She was a vocal advocate for social justice. Now it's time for us to give justice for Katie. As the mayor said, as Chief Bryant said, there's a lot of information out there. We as the police department and our investigators, we have a duty to abide by the laws of the courts and the rules of evidence. We'll be wrong to put out a lot of information in the public. We thank you for your concerns. We thank you for your cooperation. Most importantly, we thank you for your patience. This is going to take time. I assure you that the men and women that are assigned to this investigation are working around the clock. As Chief Bryant just said, the integrity of this investigation is important. There are things that only the individual or individuals responsible for this know. This is very important when we apprehend them. This is what we use as to further our case in order to bring them to justice. I know there are a lot of questions. And again, we're going to continue to provide information when we can and when we deem it's necessary. What will happen shortly after this press conference, we'll be releasing still photos of 6 individuals that were in and around Piedmont Park. And what we're hoping is that these individuals will come forward and to let us know, hopefully that they saw something while in the park. I'm not saying that they're responsible, I want to be clear about that. But we believe that we're hoping that they saw something that could further and help our investigation. Again, the investigation and integrity investigation is key, but I just thank everyone for their cooperations and again, for their patience.
Just a couple of things before we transition to COVID. I know there have been several rumors that there is a serial killer on the loose in our city. We don't have any evidence of that. Also that this was a hate crime. As of now, we don't have any proof of that as well. This is not to say that things will not change, but at this point, we don't have any confirmation of either of those things. So I want to clarify that.
On August 3rd, Emma Clark spoke with the media.
I tried to feel for her pulse, but it was clear that she was already gone, and I turned around and I just ran out of the park because it was dark and I didn't know what was going on. I was terrified and shocked.
New tonight, we are hearing from the wife of the woman who was stabbed to death in Piedmont Park. Emma Clark first came across her dog Bowie near the entrance before finding her wife Katie Janness dead. And tonight, Emma says that she is done living in that area with her home where she worked, and she can't see herself going back to that community. She tells 11 Alive tonight that she doesn't believe this attack on Katie was actually targeted.
But I do want everybody to pay attention and be safe around there. You know, I know a lot of people, we all go around there, we're out late, but now it's, you know, it's different.
Right now, police are asking anyone with information about that night to come forward. Check out these pictures here, folks. They could actually help the investigators. These are pictures of people officers want to talk to. They are not considered suspects tonight. They were at the park near 10th Street Northeast and Charles Allen Drive. And here's some more pictures for you. These are people seen near 12th and Piedmont Street. Once again, these are people who were in the park around the same time Katie may have been killed. If you are one of these people, you're looking at the screen right now, or you know someone, get in contact with those investigators immediately.
On the 4th of August 2021, Emma Clark's 911 call and new video surveillance footage around the Piedmont Park was released.
A woman murdered in Piedmont Park.
Her partner making the horrific discovery. A warning, the audio you're about to hear is tough to listen to.
Did you just see that? That's my girlfriend.
Atlanta police also just releasing new video of potential witnesses. Investigators are urging these people to come forward.
We have team coverage of reporters piecing together what happened as police search for the killer. First, CBS 46's Haley Mason breaking down that 911 call and a timeline of what happened that night. Haley?
Tracy, I've combed through every bit of that 911 call and the new surveillance video, trying to piece together a more clear picture of everything that was happening here at Piedmont Park when Katie Janness was killed, even talking to the woman who found her body right beyond that front gate. One thing we've realized is this brutal murder happened quickly. Everything that we're about to show you taking place in less than an hour.
She's dead. She's here at Piedmont Park. Please help.
You said somebody's dead at Piedmont Park?
This is the frantic 911 call made after Katie Janness was found murdered inside Piedmont Park.
You said somebody's dead at Piedmont Park?
On the phone is Emma Clark, Katie's partner of 6 years. She tells us she went looking for Katie after she didn't respond to calls or texts while walking their dog. Her phone pinged to Piedmont. Today, police releasing surveillance video of possible witnesses who were at the park when the murder happened. We've put together this timeline. At 12:09 a.m. last Wednesday, this is one of Katie's last moments, walking her dog across the Pride intersection in Midtown on 10th Street. Shortly before, at 11:55 p.m., a group of women walking from the park. At 12:25 a.m., a man with a cane is seen walking out of the opposite side of the park, looking at his phone. At 12:43 a.m., a person in a hoodie and jeans walking away from the same Piedmont Avenue entrance. And by 12:46 a.m., this man in blue is seen jogging in and out of the park entrance just yards away from the murder scene. Police stressing these aren't suspects but possible witnesses they're asking to talk to for possible tips. By 1:11 a.m.,
Atlanta 911, operator 7959. What's the address to your emergency?
Emma had made the awful discovery and called police.
I'm at the entrance of Piedmont Park. I just was searching for my girlfriend's phone because I couldn't find her. She's dead. She's here at Piedmont Park. Please help.
You said somebody's dead at Piedmont Park?
Yes, sir. Please send help. Please.
All right, yes, ma'am. I'm going to send help to you.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
And a few seconds later, we hear an unidentified person walking up, yelling, seemingly in shock.
She was right near the entrance. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you. Did you just see that? That's my girlfriend. Yes.
All right, hold.
Please, oh my God, dude, she's like, she's dead. Like, it's so far.
All right, I'm about to call Grady, okay?
Emma telling me Tuesday she hopes witnesses will come forward to help find the killer.
Of course, found her, and I initially didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't stick around. It's very possible that these people saw something that they don't realize.
And we're still not revealing everything that happened to Katie Janness just because the details are so disturbing. But police hoping that someone that was here around that time will bring forward more information. We know police and PETA are working together now with a $20,000 reward that would lead to an arrest or conviction. Reporting at Piedmont Park, Haley Mason.
On Thursday, August 5, 2021, Fulton County officials joined law enforcement and held a press conference to update the public on the Piedmont Park stabbing case.
Good afternoon, you all. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm honored to have here with us the Fulton County Sheriff, Patrick Labatt, who is going to be addressing you first. Kurt Erskine, the United States Attorney for the Northern District, as well as Officer Coit, Captain Sergeant Coit. Sorry, I think he has Assistant Chief Coit. I never know should it be Captain or Assistant Chief Coit. And members of my staff, Michael Carlson, who is the head of the Major Crimes Division, are all joining us here today. We wanted to speak to you. We've all been getting calls from the community about their concerns regarding what happened at Piedmont Park, and I wanted to allow Sheriff Labatt to address you first.
First of all, good afternoon. I do want to take an opportunity to thank my team as well, Chief Deputy Antonio Johnson, Lieutenant Colonel Willis, and certainly many of you have seen Captain Butler out and about. The summer is absolutely a challenging time for us, and we certainly see an increase in that space and that time. As we continue to really think about how we affect crime, one of the things that your sheriff's office has done is created a Think Twice, Save a Life program. This initiative in and of itself is, you'll see countywide signage, but more importantly, you'll see countywide and Fulton County patrols as we continue to go out and about and urge our citizens, our community, to really put down weapons, to be in a space where you think twice before you pull the trigger. Often we see a small disagreement escalate into something that is really life-changing for all parties involved. The Think Twice, Save a Life program itself it coincides with the national response to violence across the country with respect to gun violence and what it's targeting. I believe the conversation, though, is quite simply around how do we intervene and how do we create programs such as Think Twice, Save a Life to really combat crime in our communities. So let me share with you really quickly some of the things that your Fulton County Sheriff's Office is doing. We have increased the number of patrols to include those areas that have been recently affected through violent crime. We have put more deputies on the street. That is one of our key partnerships with APD and with other jurisdictions across the country. Our goal is to eventually get to 200 additional deputies on the street. Now, nearly 1 month ago, we started a Scorpion unit, and while many thought we were out of our leagues, Michael Cuffey, when we started this, we really we were laser focused on going after violent offenders. This crime suppression unit, be it new, specializes in gangs, investigations, and really reducing gang activity and violence and creating an overall safer Fulton County. Within the first few weeks, let me tell you what the Scorpion unit's been able to do. In conjunction with GSP and certainly our partners at the Atlanta Police Department, we've run 4 joint operations. We've had 32 individual details. That has resulted in 15 felony arrests, 13 misdemeanor arrests, as well as 13 wanted persons located. Nearly 250 citations, 3 vehicles recovered, stolen vehicles recovered, and 2 weapons, including an AR-15. So in February, many of you may remember, we started a Rapids crime reduction program. That is to leverage technology, figure out how we together through technology sharing, can really get in front of this conversation. The reinvestment grant itself is from the National Sheriff's Association, and the Bureau of Justice Assistance has provided nearly $3 million for us to interact with the FBI, interact with our local jurisdictions to really make people understand and rest assured that we are getting in front of the conversation. Now, the grant itself, through technology, focuses on not just the arrest and the booking process, but through to convictions, release, probation, reentry, as well as technology platforms to increase data sharing. So we've done that, but not just in Fulton County. It extends to Cobb County, Gwinnett County, DeKalb, and Henry, so that we can do a better job sharing information. We are continually focused on strengthening our relationships, certainly with Madam DA and her staff. What this looks like across the county is a collaborative effort for us to improve communications. Chief Bryan and I from APD, as well as the other chiefs, meet regularly and constantly figure out how we can do a better job from that perspective. And the note here is leadership starts at the top. We're pushing that message down. You'll see Fulton County change. One of the things that Madam DA and I discuss on a regular basis is how Fulton County in and of itself looks differently, feels differently. You can commit the same crime, driving on a suspended license, in Cobb County and Gwinnett, and get up to a year in jail. Here, in Fulton County, you're likely to get probation. In Sandy Springs, you can commit disorderly conduct and get 6 months in jail. Here in Atlanta and Fulton County, you're probably signing yourself out before the police officer gets out the back of the Sally Port, sign your own bond and get out. There's stark differences that you will see the way Madam DA and I not just communicate, but attack crime. And so as we get ready to move into a new space, our goal is to really set the tone of what new Fulton County looks like. And people say, well, what do you mean? You know, we're working in partnership to put in a stop to this myth that Fulton County is a place where you go to commit crime. Our goal is to be laser focused on making sure that our citizens are safe where they work, live, and play. So as we continue to patrol the streets, as many people thought Fulton County Sheriff Sheriff's Office could not do. You see before you and the results of us getting out, making sure our job is to go after those that mean us no harm. So with that, I will tell you, in closing, I will tell you this. We simply want to stay focused on those that are doing us no harm, and you have been warned, stay out of Fulton County.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Madam DA, for inviting us. I am Kurt Erskine. I'm the acting United States Attorney. I'm joined today by Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Philip Whistler, who is here from the FBI. We are here in a supportive capacity to stand side by side with our state, local law enforcement partners. The United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia and the FBI are assisting Atlanta Police Department and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office with the investigation, and we stand here with them. We have pledged to assist in any way that would be helpful to their investigation or would further their work. And so we remain supporting and committed to that support. We pledge the assistance to APD and District Attorney Wilkes in this capacity and stand ready to lend our collective federal resources to bring to justice whoever perpetrated this terrible murder. Thank you.
We believed it was important to come forward today to make sure that the public knew that we were united. And when I say we, I'm talking about the Atlanta Police Department, the Fulton County Sheriff, the United States Attorney, and the FBI regarding this horrible murder of Catherine Janness at Piedmont Park on July 27th. Metro Atlanta is understandably concerned. The United States Attorney and myself have talked about how many calls we have gotten from the public about this case and how concerned and frightened people are. We've also talked about the distraction of unnecessary rumors. But as leaders in the community who work to make all of us as safe as possible, we have heard from these people, and we know that this is an important crime and that the public is watching and waiting. My colleagues and I are here to just let the public know that it is not a crime that is going unnoticed. It is a crime that we are collectively putting our resources in and working together to solve. One reason that I thought that it was so important that Sheriff Labatt come here today to tell you some of the general efforts that he was doing is because those cars that we've heard about and that people kind of laughed about him putting on the street, those cars have helped to enable to make sure that there is more security and safety around not just Piedmont Park, but all of our parks. And as soon as I called him and said this was a concern and discussed with him what I was hearing from the public, he immediately did that. Those types of collaborations have not happened in the past, and it is important that our leaders are willing to do that when they are called upon. We are here today, though, to ask the public to put some safety measures of their own in place to make sure that they do things that move safely, like go out in public with several people with you when you're going to the park. I love Piedmont Park as well, but at this time we're asking that you go with 3 or 4 friends when you're there, and that you're not alone at night, and that we just make sure that we all take safe precautions. We're here because we would like to address any questions that we can answer and that will not interfere with the investigation. As you know, my office will ultimately be responsible for prosecuting it, and so we don't want to do anything today that would interfere with the investigation, but we do want to send a strong message to the public that the federal government, the local government, to be the city and the county, are all working together to support efforts to make sure that this crime is solved. Thank you.
There are many murders in Fulton County and the city of Atlanta. Why this one? Why does this get this type of resources and all these agencies coming together? Can you explain that?
You're correct. In every murder, in every case, requires different resources. Some cases require expert witnesses where the office has to go out and hire experts to come in. Some cases we look at and we instantly know that there are expertises and resources that the federal government has, and so we call upon them to help. But every case is treated very seriously, and this case, because there had not been a murder in Piedmont Park so long, because it is a public treasure, because of this is as I heard Chief Bryant say at his thing, a town where shootings are here, and this involved a different measure. We thought that it was necessary, and so what we're doing, what is necessary to solve this case.
Yeah, could you explain what threshold this case met to invite the FBI in so early on? Why the FBI did soon?
I think that sometimes you go out, so every case in Atlanta, so that we're clear, when there is a homicide in Atlanta, my office reports to that case immediately. That night, that morning, whatever time of day it happens, we send a trained investigator from Mr. Carlson's unit and a lawyer there. And so APD in Fulton County, we regularly work together. We stay out of their way, but we are always a resource for questions for them. Sometimes when I have questions, though, it's not the smartest thing to think that you know everything. We know that maybe the feds will have the kind of answers we need. In this case, we thought from the beginning, and APD wisely thought from the beginning, that it would be important to get some of the resources of the federal government to look into this case, and so that's why.
I know it may be premature, but if you can shed light on what kind of charges, to your knowledge, this case would warrant. Are we looking at a potential capital murder case? If you can shed light on how serious the breadth of the charges are.
I'm not going to go into additional charges. I mean, obviously, this would be a malice murder case and aggravated assault just based on the actions, but every charge we won't know until an investigation is complete. So it is much too early to say that.
Is there anything new you're able to tell us about the investigation? Anything police are looking for specifically, that your office is looking at specifically? Anything that we could tell the public about what to be aware of?
What we would ask that you take from today to tell the public is to behave in a way that is safe. That is really the message that we want. We want them to have confidence that all of these agencies have come together so that we can work to solve this particular crime. But we also want them to just take safe measures, and we want them to understand that this case is a priority.
I can only imagine how many calls and questions the public has brought to you guys. What have been some of the conversations, some of the concerns that you've heard of?
Well, of course, we've all heard this rumor of a serial killer in the loose in Atlanta, and other cases from other jurisdictions that neighbored us, that these were connected. We have no evidence of that at this point, but that has been one of the concerns because of the particular community that surrounds the Piedmont property. There have been questions of, is this a hate crime? And it is really too early to answer those calls. But we certainly every law enforcement agency up here are hearing those kind of calls. And we hear the fear in a community that is usually safe.
Are you also hearing, I've been out there quite a bit, I've heard a lot of people question whether the park is safe, whether there's enough security enhancements out there, i.e. lighting, more police presence, and operational cameras. Are you hearing anything along those lines?
Well, what I can tell you is that is one of the reasons I thought it was important that the public hear that not only has Atlanta Police Department put patrols out there, but the Fulton County Sheriff's Office also has cars out there. So we are taking additional safety measures to make sure the park is safe.
District Attorney Willis, shifting gears just a bit. Jerry McKinney was arrested yesterday.
Yes.
On a host of charges. I haven't been able to get any of the actual charging documents, but among them are gang affiliation, gang charges essentially. Which gang is he accused of attempting to be a member of?
Well, that case, you're right, there was an arrest on that case yesterday. I'm sure you all will remember, and those who don't know, he's referring to the Sequoia Turner incident. Several months ago, I requested that the Georgia Bureau of Investigations join with the Atlanta Police Department on the work that they had done, and that they go out and investigate, and that they specifically investigate the element of gangs. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations has done a wonderful job. They've done a timely job, and they have delivered to us not only that arrest, but lots of documents that my office is going through. We expect to bring down indictments in that case as early as next week, and I believe that at that time we can have a more thorough conversation on that matter.
I cannot help but notice you have not answered my question.
I tried.
Is this an example, though, of how gang activity can really spiral out of control? We were kind of following the threads back through that, and that seems to relate to a lot of other really kind of profound cases that we're following.
Well, if you're paying attention, and it's what I keep saying over and over again, sometimes I feel like I'm screaming at the wall, we have a gang problem in Fulton County and the metro areas surrounding it. And that gang violence is harming people, to include children. And so we are taking it very seriously. We are working with the same agencies that you see standing here today, as well as the GBI, to solve it. And we are taking a tough stance on it. And we're going to be bringing charges that are appropriate for those acts.
Is there a message to the person who took Ms. Janness's life?
The message is that all of law enforcement is focused right now. We are paying attention. We take this murder very seriously. We want our citizens to feel safe, and that we expect to bring them to justice.
Are you confident that it's one person? Could there be other people involved in this?
The investigation is too early to tell that.
And one other question on the Corey Turner case. We heard early on there'd be up to maybe 4 people involved. Are you expecting more arrests in that case?
I am expecting that investigations, I've said before, in other cases are like onions, and as you peel things back, I'm sure that other people of interest and maybe even other charged people will come.
Sheriff LaPont? And boy, it's kind of cool to say that. Hey,
Thank you, George.
Yesterday at the Fulton County Commission, they approved a deal with Cobb County to move 500 prisoners into the Cobb County prison. What does that mean for the negotiations that are taking place to use the Atlanta City Jail?
So first, let me be clear. It is up to 500. All right. So one thing we wanted to work with the Board of Commissioners on was to not have to repeatedly go back. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, possible uptick in crime, possible COVID and the variant. Right now we have 303 individuals that are sleeping on devices, and notwithstanding the lack of negotiations with the city, it is my responsibility to treat people humanely. And so we have entered, based on the negotiation, the legislation yesterday, into negotiations with Cobb County. We're able to do that. Cobb County has been gracious in terms of their population is down, so we certainly can do that. Now, with respect to the negotiations in Atlanta, I did forward our conversation with the mayor and her team to the Board of Commissioners. There were several things in the negotiations that, one, did not fall under my purview, and two, we will continue to have conversations. So ultimately, the negotiation with Cobb goes 6 months, and so maybe we revisit it at that point.
The other thing you mentioned was the Scorpion unit. I'm intensely curious about that. Will you be able to make somebody from that unit's leadership available for a longer conversation?
Yes, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Okay, no worries.
Well, we thank you for coming today.
Thank you all.
On August 6, 2021, Atlanta City Council consider adding new cameras inside the park as the ones previously were old and not functional.
Adding police patrols and updating the camera network at Piedmont Park. This comes as the search continues for the person who killed Katie Janness and her dog Bowie as they walked in the park last week. Joe Ripley is live at one of the entrances to Piedmont Park, and Joe, the memorial there seems to be added to every single day.
Yeah, and it also seems as though there's a constant stream of people walking by this memorial, stopping to just express sadness or even disbelief over what happened here at Piedmont Park 10 days ago. Katie Janness's death not only just capturing the attention and standing out of a deadly year, particularly here in the city of Atlanta, but also capturing the attention of Atlanta City Council members.
Blocked by traffic cones, the memorial by the entrance to Piedmont Park still stands 10 days later in honor of 40-year-old Katie Janness and her dog Bowie. Fresh flowers show how fresh it all feels, and worn flowers show the length of the investigation. Atlanta police say Janness was stabbed inside the park with her body discovered around 1 a.m. on July 28th. A security camera nearby catching one of her final moments as she walked with her dog across the Rainbow Crosswalk not far from the park. While there's still no arrest, police say they are making progress. This morning, after putting out a photo of another possible witness, police say that man contacted them immediately to speak to detectives.
Crimes like these are an example of how a really robust camera network can hopefully help us piece together the pieces of what happened and potentially even attempt to deter crime in the future.
Atlanta City Councilman Matt Westmoreland grew up in Midtown and lives by the park. He says the crime has rocked the city and led the council to consider extra police patrols and add updated cameras in and around the park. Meantime, Atlanta police are working to reach several others caught on surveillance who were around the park about the same time as Janness and may be possible witnesses.
Authorities have warned no one should walk in the park alone after dark. There is a $20,000 reward up for grabs for any information leading to an arrest and indictment of whoever killed Katie Janness.
Joe Ripley, thank you for the...
On August 6, 2021, the possible witness, the jogger, came forward.
Department releasing new pictures of a potential witness to last week's murder in Piedmont Park. CBS 46's Haley Mason joining us live. And Haley, this is the first witness to visit police. We're talking about that and also seeing that new picture as well, right?
Yes, police at least revealing to us this progress report that this witness came in cooperating with the investigation, all identified on surveillance video that police has been putting out this week. So success so far in putting out those pictures, putting out that video, trying to get people who were in the park around the time of the murder to come talk to investigators. Just minutes before this 911 call was made.
You said somebody's dead at Piedmont Park?
Yes, sir. Please send help. Please.
All right, yes, ma'am. I'm going to send help to you.
Oh, my God.
Police say people were inside Piedmont Park, at least 6 possible witnesses, police pointing out on surveillance video. Releasing these new, higher quality photos today, police honing in on talking to this possible witness who ran by the front of the park closest to the time the gruesome murder was discovered just yards away, seemingly unaware. We broke down the timeline showing the jogger near the park entrance at 12:46 a.m., less than 25 minutes before the body was discovered and police were called at 1:11 a.m. last Wednesday. Police telling me they can't confirm if the jogging man was a witness to the actual crime at this time, but they tell us he came forward and has been cooperating. He is not a suspect.
And that timeline is imperative.
I reached out to our crime scene analyst, Cheryl McCullum.
They are working that timeline down to the second in real time. So the photographs or the videos are going to be time stamped. So they now know exactly almost when that murder occurred. So they have gotten past knowing when the 911 call was made. They now have a window that they are going to examine literally to the millisecond.
McCullum says police are taking their time, moving carefully and methodically, making sure nothing is compromised in building their case and charges.
It appears to me they've done an extraordinary job because not only have they gotten this timeline down to the second, they are now zeroing in on folks that they believe were there that could have seen something or heard something and may be unaware that they even have information that's going to help law enforcement.
And police have video and pictures of at least 5 other people that they've put out there saying they were in the park around the time that Katie Janness was killed. They're asking those folks to come forward to share any info they have, saying no piece of evidence is too small. Reporting live outside of Atlanta Police Headquarters, Haley Mason, CBS 46 News.
Haley, thank you.
3 weeks after Katie's murder, the Midtown community wanted to apply pressure to help solve the case.
New at 11, a call to action over the unsolved murder of Katie Janness. The 40-year-old and her dog, Bowie, were stabbed to death nearly a month ago in Piedmont Park.
Now the community is working to ensure her name is not ever forgotten. CBS 46's Zach Summers live at Piedmont Park with how they're sending a strong message to police and city leaders. Zach, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. You know, the last update Atlanta police released in this case was 2 weeks ago when a jogger came forward after being spotted in surveillance video. People who live in this area, they tell me that they do not want this case to go cold. So they're now standing up for Katie Janness, putting these yard signs on their lawns.
It just cannot be forgotten.
Chris McKinley didn't know Katie Janness, but he says he thinks about her daily.
I've been counting the number of days that she hasn't been in the news. And it's getting, you know, a little bit stagnant.
Katie and her dog, Bowie, were found stabbed to death inside Piedmont Park on July 28th. Police have yet to identify a suspect.
There's not one person I've talked to that feels safe walking in the park.
Wanting to add some community pressure, McKinley created signs that people have been putting in their yards to make sure Katie isn't forgotten. The message behind the signs are twofold. Show support for Katie's family and let APD and city leaders know that the community not only wants answers in this case, but real solutions to the overall crime in Atlanta.
We shouldn't be reacting to crime, we should actually prevent the crime. And so we need solutions that are actually effective and are going to work.
Katie's family released the following statement in response to the awareness campaign, saying, "We are deeply moved by the continued effort of the community to keep this tragic, senseless murder of our beautiful, kind Katie on the news as much as possible. Solving this crime will take a monster off the street, leading to a safer Atlanta."
We have to stand up for her because she's no longer here and with us.
Now, Katie's family also thanked APD and the FBI, who they say are working tirelessly to solve this crime. A $20,000 reward is still being offered in this case. Now, we have information on how you can get one of these signs on our website, CBS46.com. Live in Midtown, Zach Summers, CBS 46 News.
On August 25, 2021, it was reported a viral video was released showing a man approaching two women with what is believed to be a sharp object in Piedmont Park.
It all happened at Piedmont Park, and the women claim a man threatened to attack them before someone stepped in to intervene. Fox 5's Deidre Dukes joins us live from Midtown Atlanta. Deidre, these women now say they don't feel Piedmont Park is safe anymore.
That's right, Courtney. The women say they have always enjoyed Piedmont Park, have always considered it a safe space. But after Monday's incident, they worry that it is not.
We got babies over here.
Tyler Lee posted this video on Instagram, which captured her frightening encounter with this unidentified man at Atlanta's Piedmont Park Monday afternoon.
He comes over and starts literally yelling at us, cussing us out, saying that he will beat us up.
Lee, her friend Brittany Sanders, and Sanders' two young children were enjoying an afternoon in the park when they say the man appeared out of nowhere and began harassing them.
And this was broad daylight, so this was at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it wasn't at night or anything like that. And there was a lot of people around. So like I said, I guess people didn't really intervene at first because they didn't know that we didn't know him.
The women say the man started throwing things at them. That's when Lee started recording him. She said the bystander in the video, who intervened as the man walked toward them with an object in his hand, helped de-escalate the situation. She believes the man was mentally ill.
He walked up to us and then had like a big old object, we don't know what it was. Obviously it probably was like a tree, but it was so sharp to the point where I was a little nervous that he was gonna run up on us and try to stab us.
The women say they spoke with police officers in the area, telling them what happened, and were told they would keep an eye out for him. We contacted APD about the incident. They say investigators are aware a video has been circulating on social media that appears to show a male acting strangely in the park, and report that incident is still being investigated. It has not been confirmed who was involved in that incident or if a crime was committed. Lee says she already felt uneasy about going to the park following last month's murder here.
I'm never going to Piedmont Park again.
Sanders is grateful that bystander came to their rescue.
Luckily, the guy that stepped in, he stopped him at the right time because we didn't know what we were going to do. I mean, we didn't want to walk off because he was following us, so thanks to the guy that stepped in.
And the man who helped, who was shown in that video intervening, has received high praise on social media. And we do want to reiterate, as for the man who the women say was harassing them, he has not been charged with a crime, and police are still working to determine whether or not a crime was in fact committed. That's the latest here in Midtown. Deidre Dukes, Fox 5 News.
So scary. Deidre.
On August 25, 2021, it was alluded to in the media that a certain word was carved onto Katie's body and that her murder bears similarities to a murder case which occurred decades prior.
Piedmont Park stabbing may no longer be at the top of the headlines, but Atlanta police investigators have not slowed down in their efforts to catch the killer. Police sources say what happened to Katie Janness is similar to a decades-old murder of a woman also in Atlanta. Fox 5's Morse Diggs has the details tonight.
What's happening with the Piedmont Park killing probe? Well, detectives are going to some extraordinary lengths to try and catch a killer. And I'm going to tell you about one thing the killer did to Katie Janness that detectives can factor in as a potential motive. Katie Janness wasn't simply murdered. Police have called it an overkill.
It's a gruesome scene.
The Atlanta resident was stabbed by someone multiple times on July 28th. It went beyond even that, and police immediately could see the killer's actions were bizarre. The suspect used an instrument to carve a word on Janness's body. We know, but will not disclose the message.
There are things that only the individual or individuals responsible for this know. This is very important when we apprehend them.
I investigated a case of a woman killed in 1994. So 10 years later, I reopened the case. And this is a case where a woman was brutally murdered.
He is retired APD homicide detective Vince Velasquez. In this East Atlanta neighborhood, Flat Shows near the railroad tracks is where another female's body was located way back in 1994.
This particular perpetrator also, with a knife, left a message by cutting on this victim's face.
The victim was left with a V on her forehead, her first name, Valerie. Velasquez says the similarities are striking. That assailant, who today is in prison, suffered from mental illness and evidently had a hatred for women. APD is continuing its public silence on where they are with the investigation, but I can tell you they are throwing everything they can think of into it, wanting to try and prevent the killer from striking again and not wanting the public reaction, especially out here in Midtown, should that happen. I'm Morse Diggs, Fox 5 News.
In the Piedmont Park Conservancy had begun accepting donations for the Safe Haven Fund in response to ever-growing concerns about safety in the Midtown Atlanta park.
At 11, a new push to protect park goers. For weeks now, the stabbing death of Katie Janness has haunted visitors at Piedmont Park and beyond. The unsolved murder has some too scared to go to the park after dark. Well, a new initiative aims to make people feel safe again. CBS 46's Alan Devlin is live in Midtown tonight with those details for us. Alan?
Absolutely. Good evening to you. The park after dark just hasn't been the same in recent weeks. And this memorial, here it is, you've all seen it before, along with these brand new signs, this one saying fun solutions, not reactions, all tangible evidence of that. And here we are again, the city of Atlanta has the opportunity, you and I, you there at home, to help make a difference.
I think increased security is always a good thing.
Security concerns in Piedmont Park have run amok.
Yeah, I do think they need more security, to be honest with you.
To try and ease people's minds, the Piedmont Conservancy announced today a safe haven fund to raise money for security improvements.
I used to be able to go on walks at night and stuff, and after what happened a few months ago, it just doesn't feel that right anymore.
So somebody's dead at Piedmont Park?
Following the brutal murder of Katie Janness and her dog Bowie in the park in August, many feeling uneasy about Piedmont after dark.
It doesn't feel safe as a woman to be there at night.
Even newly placed signs standing today emphasizing the fact that the murderer still hasn't been caught. But through donations of $50 to $500, the Safe Haven Fund looking to add sightline and visibility improvements, safety messaging communications, and other safety measures.
I mean, I think helping people feel more safe is always a good idea.
They should get to enjoy the benefits that it has, and they're not getting to because they don't feel safe.
Now, over the next 15 days through September 30th, every single donation that is made to the Safe Haven Fund will be matched by an anonymous, generous donor, all the way up to $100,000. For now, we're live in Midtown Atlanta. Alan Devlin, CBS 46 News.
Alan.
On September 29, 2021, it was reported no suspect has been named and no information has been released on a possible motive for the murder.
Now to the unsolved murder that sparked panic in parks around Metro Atlanta. We're talking about the shocking stabbing death of the woman and her dog in Piedmont Park. That was 2 months ago, and tonight her killer is still on the run.
We thank you for your patience. This is going to take time.
That was from a news conference on August the 3rd, 6 days after Katie Janness and her dog Bowie were brutally murdered in Piedmont Park.
I was terrified. I bought pepper spray right away, as all of my friends did. And I didn't even want to walk to my car from my apartment.
Tonight marks 2 months since her death, and still no word on a suspect or motive in the case that made national headlines.
I understand initially that there was a big push to get an investigation fully ramped up. Without hearing any updates or news, it's a little disconcerting.
It was around 1 in the morning on July the 28th. When Katie Janness's wife, Emma Clark, made the discovery that would forever change her life.
Well, I ran over to her and I, put my hands on her face and I checked for a pulse, but you could tell that she was not alive.
They did in fact find a female deceased in the park, appears from some type of stab wounds. It's a gruesome scene.
It's now been 63 days, and while many who frequent the park tell us they understand investigations take time, they say they're frustrated by the lack of information provided by law enforcement.
A little disturbed by the fact that we're just not hearing anything from law enforcement about progress or anything. I thought they would keep us more updated.
A $20,000 reward is being offered for information leading to an arrest. Tips can be made anonymously by calling Crime Stoppers at 404-577-8477. Of course, we reached out to Atlanta police today for any updates in the case. We were told, quote, there are no new updates to release at this time.
On the 8th of November 2021, Emma Clark sat down for an exclusive interview with CBS 46.
It's a case that captured national headlines. A woman and her dog found stabbed to death in Atlanta's popular Piedmont Park. Katie Janness's partner found the bodies and called police. It has now been nearly 4 months and still no named suspects or any new information.
Well, tonight, our CSI Atlanta team speaking exclusively to Janness's partner about what she has learned about the murder. CBS 46's Karen Greer live in Piedmont Park. And Karen, Emma Clark is asking police to publicly clear her name.
Absolutely, Rick, Sean, you know what? This display of love, affection still here for Katie and Bowie at Piedmont Park. And Emma told me she doesn't come here anymore. You know why? People believe she had something to do with it. So she wants Atlanta police to publicly clear her name.
Please help.
You said somebody's dead at Piedmont Park?
Yes, sir.
It has been nearly 4 months since Emma Clark made this chilling 911 call.
Sir, I'm at the entrance of Piedmont Park. I just was searching for my girlfriend's purse because I couldn't find her. She said she's here at Piedmont Park.
After finding her partner, Katie Janness's body bloodied and dead in Piedmont Park. The dog Bowie also stabbed to death a few yards away.
I'm doing the best I can be doing.
Emma has moved from the Midtown apartment the couple shared with their 2 dogs. Emma says she used 75% of the $79,000 raised from the GoFundMe.
I used it to pay off some debts. I used it to move. I have donated some of it. It's not been a lot. I didn't donate to the reward fund.
Emma vividly remembers the last time 40-year-old Katie stopped by the restaurant.
She came by the restaurant. I saw her, said hi. She's like, walking the dog and I'm going home.
Emma telling police she went straight home after work to see Katie after midnight.
I figured she'd be home.
But she and Bowie were not home, so she hopped back on her bike to look for them, heading to Piedmont Park.
So I could see Bowie clearly because he was in the middle of the road areas, and that's lit. They have lights, but I didn't see Katie right away because it was darker. I was there. I saw her, and then I went over to see if she was still alive, and then I ran.
How dark was it? CSI Atlanta's Cheryl McCollum and I wanted to see, so we took a walk through Piedmont Park with photojournalist Ryan Bellamy at the same time of Katie's murder. What's the problem? What are police doing?
I think they're waiting for testing to come back. If they found DNA, if they found a fingerprint on an item near her, if they found something on Bowie.
More than 90 days later, no named suspects. Could Emma be? She tells me, according to Atlanta police, no.
I mean, they haven't publicly said that. They took my phone from me that night, and they went to my apartment, they looked in my apartment and everything that night.
We asked Atlanta police if they could publicly clear Emma. They sent us this statement. Quote, "The investigation into the murder of Catherine Janness remains open and very active. Our investigators continue working tirelessly to find the persons responsible. We understand it is frustrating for there to be so little information released publicly." Emma says she has been receiving death threats from people who think she is responsible for the murders. She's bought a gun for her safety.
She did call my phone and leave me a voicemail. She called me a murderer, female dog, and then said that I would be caught. I'd like for them to come out and say that I had nothing to do with it, because I did not have anything to do with it. And I can say that 100 times and it doesn't be like, of course she's gonna say that. You know what I mean? Like, of course. But it is the truth.
Emma's father also told me there was male DNA found on Katie's body and that she was sexually assaulted. Atlanta police not confirming any of that information with me tonight, saying this is only still an active investigation. We'll, of course, stay on top of any new developments. Live in Piedmont Park for CSI Atlanta, I'm Karen Greer.
Karen, thank you.
On November 9, 2021, the autopsy report was released, which showed the details of the autopsy procedure which occurred on July 30, 2021.
News.
Breaking at 11, a patient is dead after an ambulance crashes and rolls over. You're looking at the scene on West Campbellton near Go Lightly Street in Fairburn. Police say it was a single-engine crash. The driver is okay. There's no word yet on what caused the crash or the name of the victim. Georgia State Patrol is investigating. New at 11, an autopsy report reveals the gruesome details in the murder of Katie Janness. Katie and her dog were found stabbed to death in Piedmont Park July 28th.
The medical examiner sent CBS 46 a copy of the report late this afternoon. It reveals sharp force injuries of the face, neck, and torso, plus more than 50 stab wounds to her body. CBS 46's Zach Summers is live at the park tonight. And Zach, much of this report is really too disturbing to talk about on TV.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. Investigators have released very little information about this case, but this 11-page autopsy report goes into great details about the fatal injuries Katie Janness endured inside Piedmont Park back in July. Nearly 4 months after the shocking murder of Katie Janness and her dog Bowie inside Piedmont Park, a newly released autopsy report exposes the chilling details of the 40-year-old's final moments. The 11-page report reveals Katie was stabbed more than 50 times in her face, neck, and torso. The letters F, A, and T were also carved on her torso.
That was for the satisfaction of that killer. It had nothing to do with accomplishing a murder.
Cheryl McCollum is with CSI Atlanta. She believes the killings were personal.
It seems very deliberate.
McCollum has no doubt Katie tried to fight off her attacker. The medical examiner found nearly a dozen sharp force injuries on her hands.
Those are what we would call defensive wounds. She knew she was being attacked.
As authorities continue to hunt for Katie's killer, her partner, Emma Clark, who made the gruesome discovery on July 28th, wants Atlanta police to clear her name.
I did not have anything to do with it.
Emma told CBS 46 she's gotten death threats from people who think she's responsible. The threats so troubling, she recently bought a gun for safety. And now, if you'd like to read that report for yourself, it's on our website, cbs46.com, and on our streaming app. A reminder, there is a $20,000 reward for information that will crack this case wide open and put somebody in jail. If you know anything, call Crime Stoppers. For now, live in Midtown, Zach Summers, CBS 46 News.
Zach, thank you.
On January 4, 2022, the City of Atlanta Police Department gave an update on the investigation.
Good morning, Deputy Chief Charles Hampton Jr., Hampton. And so, again, we know that a lot of inquiries are coming in regarding the Katie Janness homicide that happened on July 28th in Piedmont Park. And so just recently we just had a press conference of a cold case. So we don't have a lot of updates right now. That case is still open. But just to assure the public that our investigations do not stop. So the Katie Janness homicide is still very active. We continue to work leads that come in almost weekly. We're still meeting on a weekly basis with the FBI, and we are getting close, in my opinion. And so there's still work to be done and work that this team continues to work. But we have not deemed this a cold case because we continue to work leads. But as I said before, our work is never done in any investigation, and it's particularly in homicide investigations. As we showed earlier, there is a connection that our investigators build with the victim's family, and that's something that is never gone. And just like this case, we currently also have 53 open cases from this past year, and we work them every single day. This homicide unit is tasked with not only handling homicide cases, they handle death investigations, suspicious death. They go out on suicide. So it's a lot of work. But the men and women that are part of the homicide unit work very diligently to continue to follow up on leads. Again, as you heard previously, they go out, they canvass. When everyone else is asleep, they're out knocking on doors still. They build relationships with the victim's family. And it's tough to call a victim mom or dad and not be able to say I have closure. But they make those tough phone calls to let them know that our work is not done. And so Lieutenant Wolf may come up, but again, we just wanted to let the public know that case is still very active. We continue to work that in addition to the other 53 cases that we are currently working from 2021. So, thank you.
So total of 53 that are open, or Katie plus 53?
Total of 53. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just in terms of tips, you guys getting any more tips in terms of that case?
I'll let Lieutenant Wolford speak to that.
Yeah, as Chief has indicated, this investigation is still very open and ongoing. There is, of the hundreds of thousands of police officers in the country, less than 2% of them get an opportunity to call themselves homicide detectives. So the detectives that are in this unit are very skilled, they're very experienced. We do have a very competent team that has been tasked with these types of investigations. So where we are with the Katie Janness homicide investigation, we continue to work with our state and federal partners on a daily basis. We are speaking with them constantly, and we are having in-person meetings as it pertains to this investigation very frequently. We continue to assess biological evidence, physical evidence, as well as electronic evidence pertaining to this investigation. So we are assessing a number of leads at this point in time. As Chief has indicated, we do believe that this investigation is moving in the right direction. We do believe that we have the right personnel that has been tasked with spearheading this investigation, and we look forward to where the pieces of the puzzle being put together as it pertains to this case.
There was a lot of speculation at the time Ms. Janness was murdered among members of the community. Have you been able to, and can you speak to any theories that you all have ruled out as to why she may have been killed?
Now, we've conducted a complete victimology as it pertains to this case, and we've assessed the validity of a number of different statements that we received from a number of places. So we continue to comb through that information. We continue to vet information from the public, and we continue to solicit information from the public. If there's anyone who might have any information pertaining to this investigation still today, we are open and receptive to that information. It might align with some information that we already have, and it may help to tell some additional components of the story in which we are looking for at this time.
On January 7, 2022, the media gave an update on the press conference and how the police are still prioritizing the case. More specific details like DNA are mentioned and how good old-fashioned police work will solve the crime.
Atlanta police are also giving reassurance tonight after the brutal murder inside Piedmont Park.
It's been a little more than 6 months now since Katie Janness and her dog were found dead inside the park. And while Atlanta police have not made any arrests in the case, they tell Fox 5 they are getting closer to solving the crime. Fox 5's Brian Hill has the latest on the investigation.
This memorial for Katie Janness and her dog have been here at the entrance of Piedmont Park since their deaths in July. And while they have no updates right now, Atlanta police tell us that in that time, their detectives have been actively following leads and say this case is moving in the right direction.
Our investigations do not stop.
During a news conference Tuesday afternoon, Atlanta police reassured the public that Katie Janness's murder is still a top priority for investigators.
We continue to assess biological evidence, physical evidence, as well as electronic evidence pertaining to this investigation. So we are assessing a number of leads at this point in time. As Chief has indicated, we do believe that this investigation is moving in the right direction.
Janness suffered more than 50 stab wounds and slashes to her face, neck, and torso that night, according to an autopsy report. The report also revealed other disturbing details like the letters F, A, and T being carved into her torso, as well as significant mutilation to her upper torso.
There is no full sample of DNA. There is no DNA, to what I understand, that's available to test. So this is really going to be a case, I think, where this old school detective work where, leather hits the pavement.
Retired Atlanta homicide detective Vince Velasquez, who consulted with the lead detective on this case, spoke with us about what those injuries could say about the killer. He says right now there doesn't seem to be an intimate connection between Janness and the killer.
The other element that a lot of people don't understand is that people with mental illness, and we've had cases like this, in their mind, whatever voices they're hearing or whatever demons they're fighting, it's transferred into that object. It could be that person. And there really isn't an intimate connection.
The brutal murders of Janness and her dog continue to be top of mind for many regarding crime in the city and here at the park.
I'm more cautious about where I go and what times I go. I'm always with a group of people.
It's very uncomfortable coming here, especially at night, so that's why I leave before the sun goes down.
Atlanta police are still urging anyone with information that can help solve this case to come forward immediately. In Midtown, Brian Hill, Fox 5 News.
On the 15th of March 2022, the police gave a short update on the Piedmont Park murder case, stating the investigation has primarily shifted to a forensic one.
Chief Hampton, I have a question. Can we talk a little bit about some of the high-profile cases? Any latest on the Piedmont Park murder, and also with the Chief, we were talking about the Beltline shooting and the two other people. I know Brandon Williams is believed to be the shooter, but what part do you guys right now believe the two other people you were searching for played?
Well, like any investigation, obviously we don't like to talk much about in the media. We know that Brandon Williams is our shooter. The involvement of the other people it will be part of the investigation. Just again, being present, being around, is enough to convict someone because, again, everyone has a responsibility to do the right thing. And so when you see someone doing wrong, at that time, you have the responsibility to stop actions or doing the right thing and saying, hey, I know what happened. When we get involved, as Chief Bryan said, we're going to do our part to bring everyone that has any type of role in these investigations to justice. Now, you mentioned about the Piedmont Park. Again, that is still an ongoing investigation. Right now, it has primarily shifted to a forensic investigation where we are relying on the science and the technology. Investigations take time. We've been fortunate to get some of these high-profile cases solved in days and weeks. And then there are other cases that, again, our team continues to work diligently to bring people responsible to justice. But it takes time. It does not mean that we're not working. We continue to work with the FBI in this case. We meet with them weekly on this investigation. So this is still active. We still continue to get leads that we will continue to follow up on.
On March 16, 2022, CBS 46 re-released the interview Katie Janness' partner Emma Clark gave a day after Katie's murder.
Emma, I guess I'll just start asking you to just tell me, in the last 24 hours, how do you describe this last day for yourself?
It's hard to describe. Difficult. Unreal, pretty much.
You feel like you're in a nightmare of some sort?
Yeah, I've said that a couple times. Definitely, it's not set in yet. I don't think completely. Very just sad.
You feel like you're still kind of in shock?
Probably, yeah.
When, if you could just tell me, who was Katie to you?
Katie is my favorite person in the whole world, without a doubt. I spend all the time with her, and even if like she was at work, that's normal. And if I was at home not without her, I missed her even in those times, you know. I always wanted her to be around. She was funny, she's smart, I always tell people, I'm like, you know, I have random facts I like tell people, but I always learn them from her. She has something new to teach me every day. And that was one of my favorite things about her. Just, she's so smart. Like, and I always told her she could have done anything in the whole world that she wanted to do. She could have been anything, but she hated school, so she didn't take that path. But you know, she was charismatic even if she didn't like to be around everybody all the time. She was very to herself. A lot of times she liked alone time. So she was a really good person. She never did anything bad to anybody. You know, she was really sarcastic. Maybe had a little bit of dark humor, but I like that about her. We actually met at G's in Midtown. She was a bartender there, and I used to go there all the time when I first moved to Atlanta because I didn't have any friends, and my brother worked there, and so that's how we met. And she always worked the day that I would go up there most of the time. And one day we were both just having drinks together, and she said, hey, she knew how to get me. She was like, you want to come meet my dog? And I was like, I do want to come meet your dog. So we went to her house and like hung out with her and her dog. That was pretty much the beginning of everything.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Probably 8 years ago, almost 7.
So you all been together for almost...
Officially, we celebrated our 6th year last month. So
6 years together.
yeah.
What was your last memory of her? If you could talk about what Tuesday night.
I mean, I didn't usually work Tuesday, but I guess, I mean, we had coffee together in the morning, like we always do, and just said, you know, goodbye, see you later. She came by with the dog, because if she's out with the dog and she's over there, she'll always comes to say hi, lets me see him, and just, check up on me, see how long I was going to be at work. And, I said I love you. Be safe. I'll see you later. That was pretty much it.
What made you, say, hey, she's not back yet, or she normally is? What's the routine and what stood out as not normal?
Well, I didn't get home till about an hour after I saw her, and we live like a mile up the road, so she would have been home by then, because she wouldn't have gone much further. Walking the dog, she doesn't usually stay out that late to walk him. So and if I get home and she's not there, I always call her, just be like, hey, what's your ETA, where you at, whatever. And she didn't answer, and she always answers. So that's when I knew something was really wrong. I called her a bunch of times, she didn't answer. I texted her a bunch, she didn't respond. So I pretty much knew immediately something wasn't right. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something had gone wrong.
You pinged her phone.
Yeah, I used to Find My iPhone app. I know of her information. She uses, so I got on there to look for her, and it showed me she was at the park. So.
What do you want to say to whoever is out there that did this?
I honestly don't know, but this is the worst thing I could imagine. It's definitely like a horror movie, and Katie didn't deserve to go through what she did. My biggest thing that I've been saying for the past days, like, it's really sad for me to lose her, but I can't even imagine how scared she was for that to happen. She wasn't an easily scared person. She was very confident. She felt safe being in Midtown, and that in her final moments, like, that was taken from her, and that bothers me the most. And I hope they find them. I hope they get what they deserve too.
I'm so sorry. I'll give you a quick break to ask your dad a couple questions. Dad, you see your daughter's hurting, but you knew her too. How are you taking this all in? What are you thinking?
Well, the one thing that stands out so much for me and the relationship, and we're extremely close, and Katie made Emma happy. They had a good life together. They've started with nothing. They built on that. They lost their first home in a house fire, and they had to move to where they live now. And but they were so resilient through that process. And Katie, like she said, she was so intelligent. I loved conversation with her because there's several subjects that her and I could talk about, and she always knew the answer, which was awesome. But the way it is affecting Emma through this, I always knew that Emma was safe with Katie, and she protected her. She was. They had such a great relationship that for a parent, if you don't have to worry about your children all the time, which most do, but I knew as long as they were together, I didn't have to worry about Emma. And Katie filled that part, just as any life partner does, is someone who, she cared so much about Emma, she made sure that Emma was okay. And Emma did the same thing for her. I'm extremely sad because Emma is hurting. And Emma lived here before. She and Katie, they were together for a couple of years before they ended up moving in together. So Emma was here, but she drove into Midtown to work every day. And then one day she says, hey, well, Dad, I'm gonna move out. Me and Katie are gonna move in together. And I thought it was such a great thing for them, so they wouldn't have to drive and everything. And just always had a security about the relationship. You know, in a lot of relationships, people, they think you're going to, you know, they change relationships so often, but they weren't that way. They were dedicated to each other. And so it makes me feel sad that what she's going to miss out on because of it.
You said you worked in Midtown. Did you work in one of the restaurants? Where do you work?
I work at Henry's. I've done pretty much everything you can do there, but currently I've just been serving, and then I manage a couple days a week, closing. So.
And so I just wanted to talk about you all's routine, because I know there's different reports, and I think some of them have been a little inaccurate, so I want to clear it up since I'm talking to you. They said that you all had gone to dinner beforehand. Was that not the case, or
No.
you had been at work?
I was at work, yeah.
And she stopped by your job to say hey before she went out walking the dog?
Yeah.
Did she work that day?
She didn't work that day. I don't normally work that day, but she was supposed to go out of town today to go see her mom. She's supposed to fly to Michigan to see her mom. She hadn't seen her in a while. So I worked that day so that I could take her to the airport. And yeah, I was at work really late. We have some new people, and things are just taking longer, so I was there way later than usual. So we did not go to dinner, no.
Did you anticipate that she would be out that late, or curious why?
She always walks the dogs late. We both work at night, so we're always up during the evenings. Like normally we don't get up until afternoon normally, like 1 o'clock. And then, we don't get our day started. We don't go to work until 4 at the earliest normally. So yeah, usually, we'd get home from work and she would walk the dog. Usually I wouldn't be off yet, so she would leave before I got home. And she would usually be back about when I got home, or a little bit after. So, it was normal for her to, like I saw her at 11:30. That in Midtown, like that's not really that late. There was still a bunch of people around. Even like right up the street, there was, that's where Blake's is, and G's, and there were tons of people around. She always goes out. I know that she didn't normally go like through the park, I don't think. Like she did sometimes, but she always took different routes. She liked knowing the neighborhood. She knew every part of Midtown, so she could go anywhere. Yeah, I've never had a problem. I always told people, like, because a lot of people be like, oh, it seems like you're a woman walking alone, or like whatever. And I was like, yeah, the most I've ever had, like, I have homeless people come up to me and ask me for money, but generally they're harmless people. You give them $1, you say no, and you move on. Nobody's ever really given us a problem, ever. So.
This isn't just shocking to you, it's shocking to the whole community. There's so many people out there right now dropping off flowers for her and you, and is it Bowie or Bowie?
Bowie. He named after David Bowie.
Okay.
So it's like
Bowie was
one of
her baby.
Katie's favorite musical artists. So.
They dropped off dog treats,
Yeah.
phones, a card, maybe Katie and Bowie. So there's a vigil tonight. People are sending prayers to you all. What do you want to say to the community?
Everybody's been really nice, and I'm thankful for people reaching out. It's actually pretty overwhelming. So a lot of people have donated money, and I'm happy because I know her mom doesn't have the money to take care of everything, and neither do I. So that was really overwhelming to see how much people were giving. So we don't have to worry about that right now. Katie always sent her mom money to help with her bills, and I know she needs the help.
This may be a difficult question, but when you saw the phone ping to Piedmont Park, did anything stand out to you as concerning then, or did you leave, or what happened then when you said
I'd already left my house. So I was just going down the street that I would think she would be near. I was just gonna ride around where I thought she would be, and because I couldn't get it to ping right away. And when it did, the first thing I noticed is that it wasn't moving. And I was like, she wouldn't just be stopped somewhere. Like, she wouldn't sit somewhere and, like, she was with the dog. She was just going to walk with the dog. She didn't, like, hang out anywhere when she did that. So that was the first thing I noticed. I thought maybe she had just, like, dropped her phone somewhere and didn't notice, or, you know, I didn't know what to think about it, but I knew it was strange.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. I guess I want to wrap up soon and just ask if you could think about what she would want people to say or remember about her. I mean, she might not have been the most outgoing or extroverted person, but how would she want to be remembered?
Yeah, she wasn't really extroverted, but everybody knew her. Like, she knew a ton of people, but she's worked in Midtown and lived there for 11, 12 years, I think. So she knew a lot of people, and honestly, Katie probably wouldn't care what people said, or she probably wouldn't want the attention. She didn't like attention. She was from the north, so she always thought Southern people were like over extra friendly, and she thought it was really weird. When she first moved here, she got a little more used to it. She still would be like, you know, a head nod's good enough for her if somebody wanted to acknowledge her on the street or something, you know. But, so honestly, she probably wouldn't care too much. I know that she knew people cared about her, and she had a lot of friends, and those people, I know they'll remember her fondly because she never gave anybody a reason not to. You know, she was never hurtful or did anything to make anybody think less of her. I don't think.
What did I not ask that you want to say or add as we wrap up?
I guess I don't really have much. It's been really hard for me to think late the last 30-something hours, so, you know, she was a good person. I want them to figure out who did this, because she didn't, like I said, she didn't deserve it, and I hate it. I hate it for her that she had to go through that. So.
Well, Emma's being really modest on the talents that Katie had. She was also a songwriter, self-taught musician, guitar collector, book collector. She was a pretty highbrow person. Even if somebody said, oh, she's a bartender, well, the bartender behind that bar probably had the highest IQ in the room. She just recently wrote several songs, and she shared them over social media and things, and they were beautiful songs, and they were about life. And she was just, Katie did not expect a lot.
She was great at writing music, for sure.
She didn't expect praise from anyone or anything. She was her own person who, she loved to share that music, though, when she was finished with it. And I used to love getting them. And it was satisfaction enough for her just that if one person liked it.
Yeah, she definitely always said like she'd love to make money making music, but she did it for her emotional well-being. She liked to she was a creative person. She liked to do it. You know, we painted for fun. She always wanted to play chess, board games. She's very intellectual and creative. So.
What part of Michigan?
I think she grew up in Berkeley. I'm not super familiar with that area.
But she moved here from Michigan about a little over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
On July 28, 2022, a year after Katie's brutal murder, there's few answers but more cameras at Piedmont Park.
Tomorrow, Atlanta police addressing a chilling crime still haunting the city. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the brutal murder of Katie Janness in Piedmont Park. Janness and her dog Bowie were stabbed to death in the middle of the night. 365 days later,
there have been no arrests and no answers.
CBS 46's Patrick Quinn joins us live in Atlanta. And Patrick, the horror of this grisly crime still feels fresh to the whole Midtown community.
That's right, Rick and Sean. I live in this community just about a block that direction, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, this murder has left a mark on many people. It impacts when they come to Piedmont Park and when they stay home. Like right now, when it turns to darkness, a lot of people will not venture into the park. Now, as you just mentioned, Atlanta police, they will hold a press conference tomorrow at 3 o'clock with the latest in their investigation. But for many in the community, after this murder a year later, they just want answers.
1 year ago, 40-year-old Katie Janness and her dog Bowie were brutally stabbed to death at Piedmont Park.
Neighbors really felt personally impacted by this crime.
Catherine King, who lives in Virginia Highland, knows the gruesome details. According to the autopsy report, Janness was found with more than 50 stab wounds to her face, neck, and chest. Her dog Bowie was dead nearby.
The whole idea that a woman walking her dog could have such a vicious attack put on it, yeah, so I wanted something so people wouldn't forget her.
King planned a bench dedication in Piedmont's dog park for Thursday night on the anniversary of the tragedy.
It's just really sad. And I want people to remember her.
A year later, Atlanta police says they're still actively working to identify the suspect. While the investigation continues, some in the community, like Chris McKinley, want to see the city take steps to make the park feel more secure.
What would you like to see change?
Definitely more cameras, definitely more police presence.
To be fair, since this high-profile murder, the city has added 30 surveillance cameras across Piedmont Park. And soon $4 million will go to install more cameras across city parks and rec centers. But as we approach the anniversary, a rattled Midtown community rallying to comfort and with questions.
We haven't forgotten, and we're still waiting for solutions.
We should hear from detectives on the latest in their search for who was behind this gruesome attack. Meanwhile, tomorrow at 6:30, that's when many people in the community, they are rallying here at the dog park, which is roughly a half a mile away from where I'm standing right now. Again, a bench dedication in honor of Katie and her dog Bowie. Live tonight from Piedmont Park, Patrick Quinn, CBS 46 News.
On July 28, 2022, the first-year anniversary of her death, the police gave an update and went over different details of the investigation. They also gave an update on the case of David Mack, a 12-year-old boy who was murdered.
Welcome everyone to 11 Alive Plus. I'm Ron Jones along with Caitlin Ross here as well. In just a few minutes, the Atlanta Police Department will discuss and hopefully provide updates about the two open cold cases from 2021. APD's homicide unit will revisit the murder of David Mack. That's a 12-year-old boy who was found dead in the woods near his home in February of last year. Now, at the time, the victim's grandmother told 11 Alive, she told John Sherrick that she was on the phone with Mack before his disappearance. He asked to go to a friend's house, told his grandmother that he loved her. He was actually going to go play football, apparently. And investigators say he never made it back home. Then a day later, his body was found beaten, shot 6 times in the woods right near his home.
Absolutely horrifying case. And I think in speaking with his family over this last year, it's just driven home what an incredible kid he was, how kind he was, and how much he meant to his family. And we really have never gotten any answers. The last time we spoke with his grandmother, she says at this point she feels like she's given up hope. She doesn't know that there's ever going to be any answers.
Right.
And there's another family here in Atlanta also seeking answers. On the first anniversary of her death today, APD is going to discuss the brutal stabbing of 40-year-old Katie Janness. Last July, her body was found in Piedmont Park with over 50 stab wounds. At the time, Janness's partner located her body, and APD is starting that news conference now, so we're going to jump in.
Justice, the families and communities have been impacted and victimized by a homicide. And we're here today to brief you on 2 of those. And before our homicide commander and our deputy chief of CID comes forward to speak to you, I just want to emphasize a couple things. Every homicide is important to this police department. And while we're here today on an anniversary of one in the Midtown community that occurred a year ago, every day since that occurrence, we have been committed to solving that homicide. And we'll speak also on one that occurred 17 months ago, which we will ask for the public's help on, that this police department is committed to bring resolution and closure for the family and healing for the Westwood Terrace community and the Midtown community. There is not a day that we're not committed in solving crimes. You see our clearance rate. You all often report on the times that we bring individuals to justice, and we tell the community and families who was responsible for the damage done. That same commitment, that ability to solve those homicides is applied to every single homicide that occurs in that city, because we know there is a family impacted and we know there is a neighborhood impacted. And so when we look back and say what has occurred for the last 12 months or the last 17 months, two things should never be in doubt: that this department cares and we're committed to solve that homicide, and this department has the capability to solve those homicides. Neither one is lacking in the two cases that you were here today. And I'm also mindful there's other families that will not hear their loved one's name today, that are cases that remain open, that this police department is working to solve and ensure that those neighborhoods and those families get the closure and the justice they deserve. So I'm going to bring now to the podium Deputy Chief Hampton, who is the commander of our Criminal Investigations Division, to start the overview of the two cases today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy Chief Charles Hampton, Jr. As Chief stated, the first case we'll talk about happened on February 10th of 2021. And as we approach the beginning of the school year, it's important that we're mindful that our kids are important to us as well. But on that day, a 12-year-old was shot and killed in our city of Atlanta. And we're asking the community, we're asking friends, we're asking people who we believe have information on that particular homicide of David Mack to come forward and let us know what happened. We're asking people to call Crime Stoppers where they can remain anonymous. But it's important to us, as Chief Shearbaum stated. Our detectives assigned to the homicide unit spend countless hours trying to solve cases. And many cases are solved by the commitment and the cooperation from our community. And so this is a plea that we ask you to do the right thing and help us bring closure to this family that's been suffering for the last 17 months. Major Peak will go into a little bit more great detail of that case. But again, our plea is to help us so we can help this family bring closure to this 12-year-old.
How you doing? As you heard, David Mack was 12 years of age at the time he was killed. David Mack was a grandson, loved dearly by his grandmother, a son, brother, and friends to many in the neighborhood. He was reported missing on February 9th, 2001 by his grandmother because he failed to return home. Tragically, he was found deceased within 24 hours on February 10th, within a half mile of his home. Investigators continue to follow up on leads that come in. However, they slowed down since the last press conference. We've recanvassed the neighborhood. Investigators strongly believe with the public's help, we can bring this case to a close and bring the person or persons involved in his death to justice. The Mack family, the Atlanta Police Department, and particularly Homicide Investigator Malone, asks that if you have any information, please contact the Atlanta Police Homicide Office, Crime Stoppers, regardless of how minute you think that information you have related to David Mack. It may just be what we need to break this case, to find a motive and bring someone to justice. Thank you.
We know that you all are also going to hear about Katie Janness, but before we move to that particular case, we're going to allow you to ask questions if you have questions regarding David Mack.
Regarding Mack, do y'all believe this was gang related, and was there more than one person involved in the shooting? I understand he was shot multiple times, and I understand beat up as well. Yeah.
So right now, we can't truly say it is gang related, and we don't know if there are multiple people involved at this time.
Are there any persons of interest?
No, not exactly. We've received information from family and friends, people that was associated with him, but as of right now, they've been ruled out.
Any suspects?
No.
At that park nearby, were the security cameras working? And if so, was he ever seen on security camera?
From my understanding, the security cameras were not working.
We're not working at the tennis court?
Yes. But don't hold me to that. But right now, I'm pretty sure they weren't working.
Do you know if they've since been repaired and are now working for that community?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
We interviewed his grandmother last year, and she described him being on a video chat with her and someone off screen. She heard someone's voice off screen, basically telling him to wrap up that call or end it or whatnot. Have you all been able to talk with people who were with him shortly before he was killed, possibly that individual?
We've talked to people before, but we can't say we've identified that person that was actually with him that the grandmother heard.
Thank you. Just to be clear, so that means that some people that you wish that you could talk to maybe still haven't.
Yes. Yes, and I think there's possibly some that we have talked to that have additional information that would help us in this case as well.
Why do you think that they're not coming forward to speak?
Possibly scared. Just other individuals, if they know who committed this crime.
Any reassurance that you could give folks in that position is that it's still tough for them?
It's tough, and again, we can't say 100% that, we'll be able to prevent anything else, but we make due diligence that if you do come with that information and you are in fear of your life, we do reach out to other resources to hopefully keep you safe and without returning to that area.
And no weapon was ever recovered in that set?
No.
Thank you, Major B. We're going to move into the next case, which is in regards to Katie Janness. I asked the media that you get your information from public affairs. We know that there are several people who say that they are sources and they may have information that they think is important to you as reporters. However, some of that information is not correct. So if there are any updates, I ask that you trust the updates that come from the Atlanta Police Department Public Affairs Unit, because that information has been vetted by the folks who you see behind me. So I really want to make that plea to the media to avoid any misinformation or any information that may incite fear in the community that is actually unnecessary. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Hampton, and he's going to go into detail as it relates to the Katie Janness case. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. A year ago today, we responded out to Piedmont Park on a tragic death. This case continues to be very active. We continue to have the support and the assistance from the FBI, the GBI, as well as the District Attorney's Office. We continue to receive Crime Stoppers tips on this case. And so we follow up on every lead that is coming in into this case. We have not at this time identified a suspect. And so everyone, until we can identify a suspect, is still considered a suspect until we can officially rule them out. Most homicide cases, on average, can take up to 147 hours of investigative time. And again, we're 12 months, and we're still working very hard to try to bring closure to this case. Lieutenant Dearlove will go into a little bit more specific. I know we've talked at great lengths about this case. He'll talk about a little bit more detail, and then if there are questions, I'll come back to the podium.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Jermaine Dearlove, Homicide Commander for the Police Department. As Chief Shearbaum and Chief Hampton stated earlier, the Homicide Unit remains committed to solving all open cases. We're going to continue with thorough investigations and pursue all leads available, and work with our community to identify additional leads pertaining to these cases. As Chief Hampton stated earlier, this is the 1-year anniversary of the Piedmont Park case. We understand the frustration and the heartache of friends and family of the victim, and I offer my condolences to those members. Our homicide investigators are motivated and committed to resolving and solving this case. To date, we have obtained multiple search warrants in and around the area of the incident location. We continue to conduct tactical canvasses to identify additional individuals or witnesses at or around the incident location, and to also follow up on leads generated. As Chief Hampton stated earlier, the Fulton County DA's office, GBI, and the FBI are working collaboratively with us to assist and offer assistance with the investigation as well. In addition, we're also receiving the community's assistance through Crime Stoppers, who I would like to say you could reach at 404-577-TIPS. You can remain anonymous if you don't want to give your name. We would take any additional assistance as well. Chief Hampton stated that we have hours that are put into cases, but I'd also like to say that each case has its own unique qualities. Whereas in identifying the suspects, we cannot put a timeline on when it gets resolved. We owe the family and friends of Ms. Janness and the effort and resolve to follow through with identifying the suspects. I'm in constant communication with our lead investigators for this case, and they remain committed as the first day they received the case as well. Thank you.
When you say search warrants, are you talking you searched areas near the park or the DNA search warrants? Can you elaborate on that?
Search warrants could pertain to so many. It was a wide area, so we have many different search warrants as far as like the MARTA bus stations that are in and around the area, the surveillance cameras from businesses that we just have to get search warrants for.
Do you believe that she and the dog were inside the park when they were killed? Were they killed there? Were they killed somewhere else?
From witness statements and follow-up investigations from the investigators, we do believe that it happened right at the entrance of the park.
Is there anything that points to this being random or someone that she may have been associated with or may have come in contact with at work or anything of that nature?
Again, as I stated earlier, it's still an active case. And it's a case that obviously we don't like to put out too much information here, but it's information, those type of questions are daily questions. We feel that we are still in the right area. We feel like that we are have active leads that is, again, that we will bring a closure to this case. You talked about search warrant. This is a case that's rely heavily on biological evidence, heavily on technology evidence. And those things also take time. Some things are out of our control, and so we have to wait until things come back. And again, that could be data coming back from carriers, phone carriers. But again, I stand here to let you know that we are still having active leads that we are currently following up on. And unfortunately, it's just waiting to something just to break.
Is it frustrating that it's been a year and still no one's in custody and this case hasn't been solved? Is that frustrating for this department?
It's frustrating for any of our open cases. As I stated earlier, these homicide lead detectives, this is personal for them. To stand and call and receive calls from victims' family and they don't have closure, it is frustrating. But it's frustrating where they stay committed, they stay engaged, it's on their desk, they're still following up. But of course, it's frustrating not to be able to call any family members to say we have someone and we have responsible for the death of your loved one.
Do you still have items out actively?
I'm sorry?
Do you still have items out actively for DNA testing, for phone carrier requests that could potentially break this case?
Yes.
Regarding the Janness case, was a murder weapon ever found there? And also, was there DNA, a suspect's DNA ever recovered from either her body or the dog's?
So, again, questions that obviously a lot of people want to know, and some things, again, I'm just not able to confirm, and I will not confirm at this juncture of the investigation. But again, things that we are still following up on, important things that, again, has kept this case still very active.
Is the public important? Because, I mean, Piedmont Park is a large park, it's very open, heavily traffic. Is the public input or tips, leads, is that important? Are you getting anywhere with those?
Yes, I mean, as I stated before, a lot of our cases are solved based on the community and just saying something I saw. A lot of people may think that I just see a big thing, but it could just be something minute. It could just be a color of a car. It could be a figure that went southbound on the street. So all that is important to us because, again, it gives us something to follow up on that eventually helps us break the case. So, yes, it's very important.
What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Just not being able to call any family members to say, we got him. So that tells us that our job, especially the homicide unit, is not done. So until we can pick up that phone or go to that door and wrap our arms around that loved one and say, our job is done. And now it's up to the courts to do the rest. But that's what keeps the men and women of the homicide unit zeroed in, laser focused, because they know they have a job to do to bring closure to that victim's family. Because again, that's ultimately who is hurting. The pain of to lose a loved one tragically, unexpected. I mean, that's something that's difficult to deal with. And again, the men and women of the homicide unit carry that burden and they try to bring closure for that family.
Chief, there haven't been any similar cases, as far as we know, to the Katie Janness case. Do you think it was somebody who knew her, somebody she was acquainted with, that could get that close to her and her dog?
As I stated earlier, we do not have a suspect identified. And so again, everyone right now, we're looking at everyone. And then making sure, as Lieutenant Dearlove stated, that we make sure that we're doing a thorough investigation, that we don't rush to judgment, because again, that's what's important. And the minute that we start assuming and rushing, that's when mistakes happen. And then that's what prevents us from making that call to the family to say we had the right person.
Has anyone definitively...
You said you were relying on science and technology. Can you elaborate on that?
Again, as I think I stated that early morning of that case, that was a very gruesome scene. And so, again, there were things that obviously the part of the evidence that was collected was biological in nature. And so, again, that is a science, and that takes time to process. And in order to provide the investigators leads to and point them in the right direction.
2 questions left.
A few minutes ago, the term suspect.
No.
Joe?
A few minutes ago, the term suspect was used. Can you definitively say if you're looking for a single attacker or multiple attackers?
We don't know. So I don't want to say it's singular because, again, we do not have anyone right now in custody. So I say suspect or suspects to make sure that everyone knows that we're going to look for anyone and make sure that we go after anyone that's responsible, and that could be one individual or multiple people. But again, right now, we don't have it clearly defined.
All right, thank you, everybody.
On the 1-year anniversary, friends of Katie Janness came together at the Piedmont Park to remember and honor her life.
Well, the other cold case APD touched on today is the murder of Katie Janness. Today marks 1 year since the brutal stabbing of the 40-year-old and her dog Bowie in Piedmont Park, and her murder just shook the community, triggering calls for more safety measures at city parks. APD is still looking for leads in this case.
We have hours that are put into cases, but I'd also like to say that each case has its own unique qualities, whereas in identifying the suspects, we cannot put a timeline on when it gets resolved.
You know, just hours ago, friends of Katie Janness gathered at Piedmont Park to reflect on the lives that were taken far too soon. 11 Alive photojournalist Cody Dallas was there.
When I heard of the story of Katie and Bowie, it was heartbreaking. We wanted to dedicate this bench for Katie. I wanted something to be here after the flowers died. And I wanted someplace people would remember her and she and Bowie wouldn't just fade into the rest of the crimes that are happening around.
This really speaks a lot to the Atlanta community and coming together. Today, I think, is a great opportunity to not only honor her and recognize her, but also understand that it's important that we all come together. I think a lot of people wanted to be able to recognize her and remember her.
We had a beautiful life together. We played soccer on Sundays in Candler Park. She was an amazing soccer player.
She had such a wit about her and this like quiet intensity. She actually was a total soft, kind, goofball, compassionate, but fierce at the same time. We want desperately for there to be justice. We don't want this to happen to anybody else.
As of January 2023, the Katie Janness case remains unsolved and her friends and loved ones would like to see the murderer brought to justice. The case is a year and a half old and hopefully the police with the help of the public in their investigation will find the answer.